Hey everybody, Karma here with episode 42 of My Life Stories. We're going to do something different today, as today's story is longer, so I'm going to split it up into two parts. I'll read part 1 now, and you'll have to stay tuned for part 2 next week for the conclusion to this story. Please take a moment to hit that like button so we can get started, and consider subscribing to my channel to not miss part 2 or any new episodes. So get yourself a drink, sit back, get comfortable, and let's get started. Today's story is called Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire, Part 1. This happened to me a couple of years back, but it still irks me to this day. I was working as a supervisor for a management company that oversaw small commercial centers. Each of those centers had 20 to 100 offices or office warehouses to let. Our managers were responsible for collecting rents, renewing leases, renting available offices or office warehouses, and supervising the refurbishment of units in need. All duties are important, but the refurbishment or remodeling of units becomes extremely vital, as you will see later on in this story. I spent my days reviewing new leases, arranging contractors to work on various maintenance issues, and following up on the performance of my managers. On one property I overlooked, I had a manager that came to the conclusion that her ways were far better than any of the policies and regulations the company had in place. At first, this disregard of policies and procedures was small. Every manager had a list of approved fixtures, flooring, paint colors, and tiles. This approved list helps the company keep costs manageable so that our bottom line is not radically affected. This manager, who I shall refer to as TP, short for toilet plunger, started purchasing upgraded floor tile, wood flooring, toilet fixtures, and decided that uncommon colors for the office walls were a better choice than the basic and neutral beige we normally went with. TP also decided that she was above the company dress code. We enforced business casual pants, a branded Oxford or polo shirt, and no jeans for our dress code. TP opted to wear jogging suits every day. She had been reprimanded more than once regarding the dress code, but in her mind, she had determined that if she kept her property rented from 60 to 85% capacity, the owner of the property would let her slide on a few issues. My superior, TM for too much, would sing TP's praises with the increased occupancy. TP was on a troubled property, but ignored the fact that the higher costs of office rehabilitations was giving the company a lower return on investments. TM continued to point out that the longer lease terms would in return give the company a better ROI, or return on investments. Over the next 3 months, I watched the financials closely as the income for TP's property continued a flat decline, while her expenses and discounts steadily increased. Each time I visited her property, TP was out of the office. Her excuse would always be, "I'm purchasing supplies." This behavior was extremely suspicious, so I asked an AM, area manager, that drove by that property to check in and see how often she was out of the office. TP's property was located near an intersection that the AM drove through 4 to 6 times a day en route to his own properties. The AM would stop at TP's property if she was there to use the bathroom, make a copy of a report, or do some other minor task. This may have made TP suspicious herself if she had been in the office more than 20% of the time the AM had visited. TP's discount discrepancies continued to inflate, and now her bank deposits were not being made in a timely manner. This was worrisome because those bank deposits ensured that the company would be able to pay the property expenses on time. The company owner requested that I take the company auditor and do a thorough audit of TP's property. We were going to begin by reviewing TP's preparation of legal paperwork for evictions to prepare writ of possession filings that were due that week. The company kept a tight deadline for this paperwork, and all managers were sent a calendar to alert them as to when this mandatory paperwork had to be completed. This was not a new process. I had other properties beside TP's that I also needed to audit, so I called TP to alert her that we would be there the next day at 11:30 a.m. We arrived at TP's property at 11:30 a.m. the next morning, only to see that the office was locked up with a return time on the door posted as 1:30 p.m. I immediately called TP on her cell and asked her where she was. She was curt in her answer that she had errands to run and didn't have all day to wait on me. At this insubordination, I counted to 10 and tried to remain calm in front of the auditor. I explained to TP that I had called her the previous day to let her know the exact time we would be at her property. I told her to stop what she was doing and return to her property immediately, as I had other appointments to other properties later in the day and I was on a tight schedule. While we waited on TP to return, the auditor and I decided to drive through the property. We documented parked vehicles with flats in general parking. This was a huge red flag, as it is a common tactic for most of these vehicles to be abandoned by the property tenants when they had to move out. The laws and paperwork that pertain to these types of abandoned vehicles are costly and time-consuming. We also saw questionable behavior from some of TP's tenants. For example, one of the tenants was running a car detailing business from his office warehouse. This is unacceptable because the chemicals that were used were not being discarded properly and were just being emptied into the property's drains. We also saw offices that were supposed to be empty that had items in them. After about 45 minutes, TP showed up and without acknowledging me or the company auditor stormed up to the office door and unlocked it so that we could get in. As we entered the office, one of her tenants walked up and followed us in. He immediately started complaining about a leak in his roof that needed to be fixed. She told him she would take a look at it when she had the time. The tenant retorted that she had been saying this to him for the last 3 weeks. I interjected and told him we would be at his unit in the next 15 minutes when we all toured the property together. After the tenant left, TP derisively snorted that the leak to this tenant's warehouse was probably from the exhaust for the equipment the tenant was installing. I asked TP if she had taken the time to check if this was true, but she replied that she had been too busy with other projects. I clenched my teeth. This was a problem location. It did not look to be well maintained with the cursory issues that I had noticed in the 45 minutes before TP had come back to the property. And now bank deposits were not handled in a timely manner, so I was curious as to exactly which projects were keeping TP so busy. My time was limited, and I was now behind schedule, so I asked TP for her legal files so we could begin the auditing process. "Oh, I haven't got those done yet," she replied. I know this story is longer than what I usually do, so you'll want to stay tuned for the conclusion next week, where the good stuff really begins to happen. There's so much more substance to this story, and all I can say is that a toxic employee like this one can be a drain not only on company resources, but also on a supervisor's time management. It is really difficult when you have deadlines you need to meet, and the people that you depend on really let you down. I'm curious to see if anyone else has ever had to deal with a toxic employee like this one. Let me know in the comments section, or leave 3 heart emojis to show support for FIA, the author of this story. Likes and comments are a great way to show support and help this channel grow. Most YouTubers get their stories from Reddit, but my stories come directly from you, the people I know, the people I meet, and those who are kind enough to give me permission to read their stories on my channel. If you would like your story read on my channel, please submit your story to karma@karmagetin.com or post to you/Karmagetin on Reddit. All stories will be read anonymously with either initials, descriptions, or pseudonames only. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Feel free to share with any family and friends, and subscribe and hit the bell icon for any new stories to be delivered to you. And check out my playlists whenever you have a moment. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And that's my video for today. Remember, do something nice today. Help me change the world.
It's not their turn, it's my turn to shine. Like the rays of the sunlight reaching out my arms.
See you next Tuesday. Remain positive and things will go much more smoothly for you. There are so many others that are in 10 times worse shape than you are, so be grateful for what you have. Have a fabulous day and a quiet night, and I will see you later.